You can see that I have the diffuse texture made up here running in Photoshop. I'm using a Wacom tablet, so you can see that I'm getting some pressure sensitivity with it. I'll use a Wacom tablet throughout the project here. And I'll clear those marks from the Wacom tablet and we'll get started. I'm going to go to Image Adjustments and Invert. That's going to change the black background to white and invert the colors. I'm also going to go to Image Adjustments. No, first I'm going to copy this. Let's do that. I'm going to copy that and paste it into a new layer just in case I need the old one. Then go to Image Adjustments and Hue, Saturation, and Desaturate to get rid of that purple that was left over when I inverted it. At this point I have two layers, and I'm going to go ahead and flatten those because I don't need them. I don't like the pink that comes in when I invert it though. And you can still see that I can still use my pressure sensitivity and I can paint with color on it. Okay, I'm going to go find some metal generic materials. We want a few materials to choose from to make our generics from. And I have a folder here with a lot of metal imagery. And I'm just going to pick out a few of these as the thumbnails come up that look like they might work. Just some big kind of flat steel pictures that look a little aged. I don't have to use all of them. Just grabbing a few to take a look at. Okay, and then we'll drag these over into Photoshop and open them up. And here's the ones that I picked. These are also included in your folder for the class. A few of these I'm going to minimize because I don't think they're going to be as useful as I once thought they were. So I'm only going to pick about 2 of these to really work with, and I've selected these 2 here. They'll work just fine. I'm going to copy and paste the first one into a layer above my template. I'm going to use the scale tool to adjust it and fit it into that area. I'm going to drag this one over now. You can see it's too big, so I'm going to need to go to Edit, Transform, and scale it down. I'm holding down the Shift button here so that I can constrain the proportions so that it fits easily. There we go. And then I'll hold down Shift again and pull it out just so that it fits. Now at this point I'm going to use my layers. I'm going to go to Dissolve under my layer types and then hit the up and down arrows key to go through the different layer types. And all I'm going to do is find one that I like that seems to fit my needs. And I want kind of a flat metal look. It's going to combine both of the images together. And I'm still choosing here which one I like best. I think I like this one. And now I'm going to go into the bottom layer, which is the bluish colored metal. And I'm going to use the patch tool. And I'm just going to clone out certain areas. And I'm selecting around areas and then moving that area to a cleaner area. And what it does is seam it up and cover up the blemished area. You can see I'll do some large areas here in a minute, like this big rusty piece, and you'll see that it just gets rid of it really quickly. It's a nice way to work in the newer Photoshop versions. There we go, that's looking a little bit cleaner. Now I'm going to go up to the top level, which is this reddish colored metal, and I'm going to do the same thing using the patch tool and just kind of grab some sections and clone them out. There's some lines running through here that I don't want, and that's what I'm cloning out now, or patching out, I should say. I'm using the patch tool. There we go. It's looking better, just kind of cleaning up some of the blemishes or marks that I don't want in my texture. I'm going to change the saturation in this top level and then go down to the level below it, or the image below it, and change the contrast or the brightness in that one. And what I'm looking for is something that's a little bit flatter. I don't want as contrasty a texture or as dark as I had. So I'm just adjusting the image properties for each layer. That'll get me a little closer to what I'm after. Okay, and at this point I'm going to copy the bottom layer, which is the template, and I'm going to paste that in the top so that I can use it to see what's going on. I'm going to put that top layer now, which is the template, in a multiply layer mode so that I can see through to the layers below it but have the template that I rendered out visible. Okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to now start drawing in some details and some elements into our diffuse map. I'm going to focus on the beveled areas around the barrel and the top of the lid. And I'm going to collapse down these two layers now, which were the two metal layers, just because I've decided I like that look. And we'll start drawing in our details. I'm cloning out some of the top, where the top of the barrel meets the lid, and I'm just cloning in some cleaner parts to make it a little bit darker. I want that to be kind of dark around the top of the lid. I'm using the square bracket keys to size my brush, and I'm selecting different colors in the map right now by holding down Control. And what I'm going to do is paint in some rust marks now with those selected colors. I'm in a new layer too right now, so it won't affect what's underneath it. And I've decided on this kind of brownish color. I'm just dragging in some streaks here. You can hold down Shift if you'd like it to be a straight line. And now I'm dragging in a little bit darker color. And what we're going to do is make this like spills or something from the lid. I now go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I'm changing the blur settings under Gaussian Blur so that I get a softer feel for those streaks. And now I'm adjusting my layer types using the up and down arrow keys so that I can find something that works. And it looks like here, I think soft light is what I'm going to end up deciding on. And that looks pretty good. And now I'm just using the erase tool to just erase in some scratches and marks and make it look like those spill marks belong a little bit better. I'll go to a new layer, and in my new layer now, I'm going to drag in some dark lines. These are black lines that are going to serve as kind of a semi-shadow underneath where those beveled pieces were. And now I'm going to go to Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to blur those lines as well, so that they fit in a little bit better. Now you can see it without the template. I'm going to drag out a circle selection here. I'm holding down Shift to make sure it's a perfect circle. And I'm going to get it close to the size of my lid. This is also in a new layer, so I'll make a new layer. And I'm going to use a brush on a big fuzzy setting. And using my Wacom, I'm just going to lightly draw around that edge to make for a little bit of a shadow so that it kind of enforces the idea that it's indented. Okay, and what I'm looking for now, I'm looking for a piece of metal, an image, and this is also included on your CD, that I have some kind of beam work or this linear line piece that I'm selecting right now. I'm going to select and copy that and then paste it into my barrel. I'm going to scale this down and use this on those beveled ribbed pieces on the outside of the barrel. Now it works, and I'm going to clone it using Control and Alt. I'm going to copy this, or clone it I should say. I'm actually going to move my template to a lower layer here in a minute so that I can get to it a little bit easier. There we go. And now I'm going to Shift Copy and just make a bunch of clones of this and put them right over those but those ribbed pieces, including the top and the bottom. Okay, now all these are in a different layer because of how I cloned them. I'm just going to merge down each of these layers, or you could lock the layers together and do it that way. And then once those are all in the same layer, I'm going to go to my layer types again, put it to the top of the layer types, and hit the up and down arrow keys until I find something that I'm happy with. And I think soft light, once again, is what I end up choosing here. Yep, I like soft light. Just giving it a little bit more dimension. You can see what it looks like without the template. It's starting to look like a metal barrel. Now I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to select a fuzzy brush and using the square bracket keys make it a fairly small brush, and I'm going to paint in some linear lines here. And these are just going to be some drawn in highlights. We're going to do a specular map later, but I like the way these highlights look on round objects, just to give it a little bit more form. And now I'm using the blur tool and holding down Shift to constrain it to a straight line just to make those taper off at the edges a little bit more. I set my layer type to color dodge and drop the fill to a very low amount. And now we have some little highlights just to make our cylinder look better once it's mapped. I'm going to do the same idea here to the top, and I'm going to make the top a little bit lighter. Although later in another video I decide I don't like it and I cover over it, but it was a good idea right now. I'm going to use the round selection, and I'm going to create a small circle in the top of my lid that's going to become a cap or a like a screw-on lid piece. And I'm going to go down to my layer that had the metal in it and copy that little round selection and paste it into its own layer at the top of my layers. And now you can see if I go down to this metal piece and turn it off, you'll see that I have a round little selection floating in its own layer. There we go. We'll turn that metal back on. And then I'm going to manipulate the lid piece. I'm going to go to my Effects tab and select Inner Bevel. And you can see that it does bevel it, but it doesn't look very real. The first thing I'm going to do is click on this white swatch color right there, and I'm going to select a color from my map, a lighter color, and that's going to make it look like it blends in a little bit better. And I'm going to do the same with the black swatch color and select a dark color. And now that little lid piece looks like it blends in a little bit better. I'm going to change the direction of the light, and I'm going to adjust the depth and the size to fit what I need. I want it to be fairly subtle. And I'm going to set the bevel type to hard chisel. That should work a little bit better. And then play with these settings until I can get what I'm happy with. And we'll say OK. And you can see now we have a little lid piece there. I'm going to go in with a white brush now in a new layer, and I'm just going to carve out a little bit of a highlight. Our normal map and our specular map will do this for us too, but this is just to help the look along. And now in a new layer, I'm going to carve around the outer piece of this with black, and I'm going to push it down in. This is also going to help with our normal map to establish the depth. And so now it's a cap in an inset little beveled area. That looks good. And I'm going to drop the fill amount down here on that lid piece. Well, first I'm going to put a little highlight around the edge just to make it look like it's indented. There we go. Now I'm going to drop the fill amount down a little bit. And you can see that it stands out a little bit more. At this point, we're almost done. We only have a few more things to do. I'm going to use black, and I'm going to make a big fuzzy brush in a new layer, and I'm just going to paint some black along the bottom. I'm then going to adjust the fill amount to be a very, very light fill so that the bottom of the object is slightly darker than the top. And I'm going to do the same thing, but this time with light, in other words, white. And I'm going to paint with a big white fuzzy brush on the top of the object, and then set my layer type to color dodge. Drop the fill amount way down so that the top is slightly lighter than the bottom. And then I'm going to use my eraser and just touch it up. There we go. We'll just touch that up with a light eraser. Make it look a little bit more natural. Alright, that's looking good. What I'm doing now is I'm hitting Control A, Control Shift C, and Control Shift V, and that's going to make an entire copy of all my layers appear at the top of my stack. The reason I'm doing this is I need to make this texture tile because that top part is cylindrical and it's going to end up tiling into itself. Right over here on the right side needs to be the same as the left side. So I need all my layers in one selection, or in one layer, and I'm going to select just this piece of the right side, copy it, paste it, and then go to Transform, Flip Horizontal, and slide it over to the right side and match it up so that it fits. And then using my eraser, I'm just going to erase out most of it except for the far left side, and that way my texture will completely tile into itself and no one will notice. Alright. Now our texture is ready to be saved. I'm going to go to File, Save As, and save it out as a Photoshop file and as a TGA, 24-bit. We'll use the 24-bit TGA file over in Max in a minute. There we go, and our file is all saved. We're going to hop over to Max now. And in Max, we're going to go to our Material Editor, select a new shader, and we'll go under Maps, Diffuse Color, go find our new map. And we'll apply it in the diffuse slot as a bitmap. We'll drag that over to our barrel, hit the Show Map and Viewport button, and that was a mistake, didn't mean to select polygons. And now our texture is perfectly seamed, so even at the seam, it doesn't matter because we took care of that. We'll render this, and that's our barrel so far. So the next step is we'll be adding the other types of maps to it. You can see where that detailing we've done with the lights and the darks is showing through right now. And in the next video, we'll tackle the specular map.